You ever get punched in the stomach without anyone touching you? That's what it felt like when they slid that paper across the desk. No warning, no conversation, just numbers. Brutal. Cold. Effective immediately, your salary is being reduced by 50%. My name is Gavin Walker. I'm 36, single dad. And up until 8:46 a.m. this morning, I was the director of client success at Riverpoint Solutions, a Seattle-based tech firm I helped build from the ground up. I've got a 10-year-old son named Miles. Bright kid. Asthma. He's the reason I haven't lost my mind completely. He's also the reason I kept showing up day after day for a company that clearly stopped showing up for me a long time ago. It happened on a Monday. Of course it did. Seattle rain was hitting my windshield like it had something personal against me. The parking garage smelled like mildew and burnout. When I stepped out of the elevator, I had no idea I was walking into an ambush. Shannon from HR was already seated in the conference room. And next to him, Brent Halpern, Regional Director of Operational Optimization, a title that practically screams, "I'm here to cut heads." "Morning," Gavin, Brent said, all crisp suit and artificial smile. I nodded. "Didn't know this was a party." Shannon didn't smile. He just slid a single page toward me. 50%. That's what it said. From $120,000 to $60,000 a year, effective immediately. I stared at the number for a full minute as if it might change under pressure. Like maybe if I looked hard enough it would apologize. Brent cleared his throat. "We've reassessed compensation benchmarks to better align with market standards. Corporate speak for you costs too much and we don't value you enough." "You're reducing my salary by half," I said slowly, "to better align with market standards." Brent nodded like a bobblehead. "Your role has shifted. With the acquisition, many of your former responsibilities will be handled by our centralized team in San Jose. So I lose half my paycheck and half my authority. But I keep all the work." "And what exactly do I keep?" I asked. Shannon jumped in. "You'll still be supporting client transitions regionally." "Support," I repeated. "Not lead." Brent smiled like he was handing me a gift. "This is a fantastic opportunity to grow within the new structure." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I smiled. I nodded. And I said, "I'll need 24 hours to consider the offer." Like I was a robot. Like I hadn't just been gut-punched in front of a whiteboard and a stale pot of office coffee. They looked relieved. They thought I was going to play along. I didn't cry in that room. But I cried in my car. Ugly crying. Chest-heaving hands shaking sobs loud enough to fog the windows. 9 years. 9 years of late nights and weekend calls. 9 years of missing birthday parties and rescheduling doctor's appointments. 9 years of building client trust like it was oxygen. And now I'm worth half of what I was worth yesterday. You ever sit in your car so long the air turns heavy? That's where I was, fifth level of the Fremont parking deck, watching rain smear across the windshield like a watercolor painting and fast forward. I didn't know what to do. Miles was at school. His inhaler was in my glove box, and my heart felt like it had been relocated to my throat. This wasn't just about money. It was about dignity. About the feeling you get when someone decides you're disposable, and does it with a smile. I picked up my phone almost out of reflex. There were no missed calls, no magic solutions, just a single unread text from Derek Munoz, an old colleague who left Riverpoint 6 months ago. It said, "Hey man, I know things are rough over there. Check your LinkedIn inbox when you can. It's important." I hadn't checked it in weeks. Too busy putting out fires. Too busy pretending things were stable. I opened the app. There it was. A message from Derek. Simple, direct. "My CEO wants to talk to you. We've been watching what's happening since the acquisition. We know your value. Let's talk. Name the time." I looked up at the Riverpoint logo outside the garage. The one they changed after the acquisition's sleeker, colder corporate. The one that didn't mean anything anymore. I stared at it for a long moment, and then I whispered to myself, maybe this time, they underestimated the wrong person. They never count the years you gave them, just the cost it takes to keep you. And if that number gets too high, they forget your name and remember your salary. I didn't sleep much that night. It wasn't fear exactly. It was something worse, disbelief. Like I'd fallen into some strange version of my life where none of the work I did mattered. Where the nights I spent chasing contracts, the flights I booked last minute, the dinners I missed with Miles meant nothing. I stared at the ceiling, trying to replay where I went wrong. But I already knew the truth. I didn't go wrong, they just stopped caring. Riverpoint Solutions wasn't always this way. When I joined 9 years ago, we were 20 people in a noisy office above a bike shop in Fremont. We had duct-taped whiteboards and a fridge full of Red Bull. And we had hope. Real hope. The kind that made you stay past 10 p.m. because you believed the future we were building mattered. We weren't just a tech firm. We were a family. Or so I thought. I was hired as a client success manager. Small title, big responsibilities. Back then, every account was a fight. We were nobodies competing against giants. So we made up for it with hustle patience and showing up when no one else did. I was damn good at showing up. By the end of my 3rd year, I was managing 7 of our 10 largest accounts. I didn't just know their KPIs. I knew their kids' names, allergies, and vacation plans. I remembered when Paul from Aldertech's daughter broke her arm, sent flowers. When Rachel from Westfield lost her dad, sent her a handwritten letter. Not because it was strategy, because I cared. And that's the thing no one puts on a performance review. The part where you go beyond the contract, where you become irreplaceable by being human. Then came the divorce. Yeah, we don't talk about that much. My ex decided Seattle was too emotionally suffocating and moved to Santa Fe to do aerial yoga and date a guy named Leo. Miles was 5. I got full custody. Suddenly, those client calls weren't just work. They were lifelines. They were how I paid for our mortgage, his inhalers, his nighttime nebulizer. How I kept my head above water when everything else was falling apart. Riverpoint became more than a job. It became the only thing I could control. By year 5, I made director. I had a team of 6. And I was finally making enough to feel stable. Not rich, not flashy. But we could eat well, heat the house, and I didn't have to pretend every grocery trip was a math equation. Miles started sleeping better, so did I. And then one morning, over lukewarm coffee and a mandatory all-hands meeting, everything changed. "We're excited to announce a new chapter," Clayton Reeves said from the front of the room, founder and man of a million TED Talks. Behind him, a sleek new logo flickered on the screen. Riverpoint is joining the Martech family. People clapped. I didn't. I saw Brent Halpern in the corner that day, the guy from corporate. Shiny shoes, Rolex watch, the kind of man who shook your hand while looking over your shoulder at someone richer. My stomach dropped. In the months that followed, the culture changed fast. No more free lunches, no more autonomy. Every decision now ran through San Jose. First they changed our systems, then our workflows, then our people. Teams were merged, roles realigned. The company word was efficiency. What they meant was elimination. Every Friday felt like Russian roulette. One week, the onboarding coordinator disappeared. Next week, the head of legal. Each time followed by a vague email from HR about strategic transitions. I kept my head down, worked harder, longer, more silent. My team shrank from 6 to 3. But the clients, they kept coming. I answered emails at 2 a.m., ate breakfast in Zoom meetings, missed 3 straight of Miles's soccer games. He asked me one night softly, "Do they really need you that much, Dad?" I paused, lied, said yes. But inside I wasn't sure anymore. Still, I believed I was safe. I had relationships no one else did. I was the one they called when something broke. I was the one who kept them from walking out the door. That used to mean something. until Brent and Shannon decided I was just a cost. I sat at the kitchen table the night after that meeting watching Miles sleep through the baby monitor I still hadn't taken down. His tiny chest rose and fell like waves. On the counter sat the offer letter, a 50% pay cut in black ink, signed by people who'd never even bothered to learn his name. That was the moment something in me clicked. This wasn't a company anymore. It was a machine. And I was just another gear they were willing to strip out and replace. But somewhere else, someone still saw my value, and I was about to find out how much it was really worth. Some moments don't feel like choices. They feel like gravity, like the pull of something inevitable. That's what it felt like walking into that cafe. Not like a job interview, more like the beginning of the rest of my life. 7:21 a.m. Westside Cafe just off First Avenue near Pike Place Market. It was early even for Seattle, but the city was already humming with caffeine and quiet desperation. I'd barely slept. Put on my best shirt. Not because I was trying to impress. Because I needed armor. Because if I was going to walk away from everything I'd built, I wanted to do it on my terms, standing tall. Inside the cafe smelled like roasted beans and wet flannel. A few laptop warriors were already typing away, earbuds in faces tired. In the back corner, I spotted them. Derek Munoz, my old colleague, gave me a small nod. And sitting next to him, casually sipping coffee in a slate gray sweater, was Marcellus Grant, CEO of Nexus Technologies. He looked up, smiled like he already knew me. "Gavin Walker," he said, standing and offering his hand. "I've heard a lot about you." I shook it. Firm. Hopefully most of it true. He chuckled. "The best parts usually are." We sat. I wrapped my hands around the mug like it was a lifeline. Marcellus leaned back, relaxed. No PowerPoint. No notepad. Just presence. Derek jumped in first. "We've been watching Riverpoint for a while. Watching how you hold on to the big clients when others let go." I said nothing. Just listened. Derek continued. "You've got one of the highest client retention rates in the region, maybe in the country. I wasn't used to this being seen. Not for what I could do, but for what I'd already done." Then Marcellus spoke. "Let's skip the small talk, Gavin. I want to know what's really going on at Riverpoint." I hesitated, and then I told him everything, from the acquisition, to the silent firings, to the moment I watched my future shrink down to half a paycheck in a conference room that used to feel like home. I told him about Brent, about the promises made, the culture destroyed, about the team I was losing, about the trust clients were quietly losing too. I didn't sugarcoat it, didn't dramatize either. I just told the truth. And when I finished, Marcellus leaned forward and said the words that would change everything. "We've been waiting for you to call us for 2 years." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He nodded, calm and steady. "Every time we tried to poach one of your clients, they said the same thing. We trust Gavin. We're not going anywhere unless he does." He sipped his coffee. "You're not just managing accounts. You're anchoring them. You're not a cost, Gavin. You're an advantage. And I don't make a habit of letting advantages stay underpaid and undervalued." He pulled a folder from his messenger bag, pushed it across the table. Inside, Director of Strategic Partnerships. Nexus Technologies, $165,000 base. 25% bonus potential. Stock options. Full health coverage including pediatric asthma treatment. I stared at the numbers, not just the money, the meaning. This wasn't a lifeline, this was a launchpad. But why, I asked quietly? Why this much for me? Marcellus leaned in. "Because in the last 4 years we've lost 5 contracts to Riverpoint. All 5 had one thing in common: your name. Because our internal data shows clients who work with you renew at 94%. And because, Gavin, no algorithm replaces loyalty. You built something real. We want you to build it again here." I felt something shift inside me. All the years I spent being told to be a team player. All the times I watched someone else get the credit. All the silence I swallowed just to keep peace. And now here was someone finally who saw me. Marcellus continued. We're not asking you to betray anyone. We're offering you a chance to bet on yourself. He smiled. And we'd like you to start in 2 weeks. I looked down at the offer. Then out the window where the River Point logo peeked through the trees like a memory I hadn't fully buried yet. They made their decision when they cut my value in half. Now it was my turn. I have to give them an answer by noon today, I said. Then let's make your morning count, Marcellus replied. I closed the folder, looked him in the eye, and said, I think we can help each other. There's something delicious about using the rules they gave you. To walk right through the door they tried to shut in your face. They wrote the contract. I just read it better. It was 10:57 a.m., 3 hours after that cafe meeting. I walked back into River Point like a man with a plan because I'd reviewed my original employment contract the night before. And what I found in those tiny paragraphs in legal jargon was leverage. Old school, ironclad. From back when River Point still cared about people instead of resources. Back before Martech gutted the culture and replaced it with spreadsheets. And what that contract said clearly was this. Any reduction in compensation exceeding 15% waives all transition obligations. No handoffs, no 2 weeks, no hostage period. In other words, they couldn't squeeze one more drop out of me. I walked straight to the 7th floor conference room. Brent and Shannon were already waiting. Same smug faces, same energy. Gavin Brent nodded, not bothering to stand. Have you had time to consider the offer? I sat down across from them. Calm, straight-backed. I placed their paper on the table, then placed mine on top of it. Brent squinted. What's this? My response, I said. And a copy of my original contract. You might want to read Clause 4.2, the one about compensation adjustments. Shannon leaned in. Brent's smile faltered. I continued. As per that clause, any salary reduction over 15% nullifies transition obligations. You offered a 50% pay cut. Therefore, effective immediately, I resign. Shannon blinked. Brent looked like he'd swallowed a stapler. You'll still need to transition your accounts, he said, tone sharpening. I shook my head slowly. No, I won't. Same contract states transition periods must be compensated at previous pay. You slashed my salary in writing. So that clause is void too. Brent's jaw clenched. You're walking out on your responsibilities. I smiled tight, controlled. No, Brent. You erased them. I'm just following the rules you forgot to read. He leaned forward, voice low. You realize this won't go over well. We'll be reviewing all of your communications. If we find anything that suggests you've shared client data with competitors, you'll do what I interrupted. Throw legal threats at me because I chose not to be exploited. I took a breath. I haven't taken anything that doesn't belong to me. Not files, not logins, but the relationships. The trust I built that belongs to me. And if you think you can replace that with some junior rep in San Jose, good luck. I stood up. Thank you for reminding me who I am. I was loyal for 9 years. You gave me a number. And now I'm giving you my absence. I turned to the door. Oh, and in case you're wondering where I'm going, I glanced back. Nexus Technologies. They made me an offer based on my real value. And by the way, you never implemented a non-compete clause. I checked. The room went silent. Shannon looked down at her lap. Brent's eyes narrowed into something like hate. I didn't flinch. Goodbye, gentlemen. I didn't pack a box, didn't send a farewell email. I walked out with nothing but my phone, my keys, and a pulse of peace in my chest I hadn't felt in years. But just before I reached the elevator, I saw them, my team. Marcus, Lena, Jody. The last 3 standing from a crew that used to be 10 deep. They'd heard. Of course they had. You really quit, Marcus whispered. I nodded. Jody looked like she wanted to cry. What happens to us? I looked them in the eyes. softened my voice. Check your inboxes in 1 hour. They thought I'd leave quietly, that I'd vanish with my head down like all the others. But I didn't go alone. I left the door open behind me, and the people still trapped inside. They noticed. I stood outside River Point's building with my phone in hand, the drizzle painting soft lines across the screen. I wasn't shaking anymore. The rage had burned off. What remained was clarity. I'd spent years carrying that place on my back. Now it was time to pass the weight to the ones who deserved it. Brent, the board, the cowards in corporate, but not my team. Not the people who bled next to me in silence. They deserved better. 11:57 a.m. I hit send. 3 emails, all short, all strategic. Email 1 to Marcus, Lena, and Jody. Subject: my departure. Team: I've officially resigned today, effective immediately. As per my original contract and the compensation changes, I'm under no obligation to transition accounts. I know this leaves you exposed, so I'm going to make this as easy as I can. Nexus Technologies is expanding. They're looking for real people, resilient, smart, client-first people. If you're ready, I'll vouch for you personally. No pressure, no promises. But you deserve to work where you're valued. Let me know. Gavin. Email 2 to 6 of my core clients, people I'd known for years. Subject: change in role. Hi. As of today, I am no longer with Riverpoint Solutions. I want to thank you for the trust you've placed in me over the years. It's been an honor supporting your work, navigating the fires, and building something that mattered. I've accepted a new role at Nexus Technologies. If you need to reach me personally, this is my contact, private email, phone. I won't be initiating any further outreach out of respect for your current vendor relationships. But if you do want to talk, I'm here. All the best, Gavin. Email 3 to Marcellus Grant. Subject: operation underway. I'm out, contractually clean. Expect to hear from at least 2 team members this week. I won't pitch clients, but I'm also not going to ignore them if they come knocking. Let me know when you want to talk onboarding timelines. G. By the time I picked up Miles from school that day, I had 2 missed calls from Marcus, 1 from Lena, and a text from Jody that simply said, "I'm in, tell me where to go." That night, after I tucked Miles in, I sat at the kitchen table watching his tiny chest rise and fall on the baby monitor. I thought about everything I'd been afraid of, and everything I was becoming. I wasn't just starting over, I was starting right. At 9:12 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. Gavin Walker. A familiar voice. Paul Kim, CTO at Aldertech, one of my longest-standing clients. Words traveling fast, I said. He chuckled. Brent tried calling us this afternoon. He didn't mention your departure. He just said the client realignment would start next quarter. I stayed silent. Then Paul said, "Look, we liked Riverpoint because of you. If you're somewhere else, we need to talk. We've got a renewal coming up, and I'm not signing anything until I know you're not being pushed out of the loop." I felt something in my chest lift. Not pride, proof. Proof that I mattered, that they were wrong. I hung up, looked at the Nexus folder still sitting on the counter. The logo seemed brighter now. Alive. Tomorrow I'd walk into a new office. No more Brent, no more games. Just work that meant something again. And the best part, I wouldn't be walking in alone. I didn't walk into Nexus looking for revenge. I walked in to reclaim something I hadn't felt in years. Belonging. Not because they gave me a desk, but because they gave me a reason to show up again. The air in the Nexus lobby was different. Not just because it smelled like fresh wood and ambition, but because for the first time in years I wasn't bracing myself for impact. The receptionist smiled when I walked in, offered me coffee, said, "Welcome, Gavin. We've been waiting for you." And I believed her. Marcellus met me in the hallway. No security badge required, no cold stares or polite avoidance like I'd grown used to at Riverpoint. "Come on," he said, patting my shoulder. "I want you to meet your team." That word "your" landed deep. They'd already set up my office. Glass walls, soft lighting, A view of the Space Needle in the corner slicing the clouds like a steel promise. But more than the aesthetics, it was the vibe. Respect, trust, possibility. The nameplate on the door didn't say employee. It said, Gavin Walker, EVP, Strategic Partnerships. It felt surreal. Like walking into the version of my life I used to daydream about during 2 a.m. client calls. Here they are, Marcellus said. 5 people stood waiting. Jody had already joined. Marcus walked in behind me 5 minutes later, and Lena, she FaceTimed me from the parking lot. Give me one good reason not to hand in my badge right now, she said, grinning. I gave her 3. She texted her manager and came up for the tour. By lunch, half my old crew was back together. That afternoon, I sat in my new chair, rolled it back, closed my eyes. No emails screaming at me. No passive-aggressive slacks. No meetings scheduled to discuss bandwidth. Just silence. And then a knock. Derek Munoz leaned in. We just got an inquiry from Aldertech, he said. Paul wants to schedule a vendor meeting, says it's urgent. I nodded. Tried to hide the grin curling up in my chest. I'll take it. By 3 p.m., I had already been looped in on 3 new potential clients. 2 were on my old portfolio, the third a cold lead that Riverpoint never bothered nurturing. Marcellus walked by my door around 4:15, tossed me a little leather notebook. Write your legacy, he said. I don't want you to replicate what you did at Riverpoint. I want you to outgrow it. And just like that, it hit me. This wasn't just a new job. This was a new season. At 5:37 p.m., I picked up Miles from aftercare. He ran up backpack, bouncing face flushed. You're early, yup, I said. And guess what? What I'm cooking dinner tonight. No laptop, no phone. Just us. He blinked, suspicious. Are you sick? I laughed. Nope, I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. That night we made spaghetti, burned the garlic bread, played Mario Kart until bedtime. And as I watched him sleep, I whispered to the quiet room, we're going to be okay. Better than okay. We're starting over with power. I didn't chase anyone. Didn't poach. Didn't pitch. But when the cracks start to show, people remember who held them together. And they start dialing your number. It started with 1 email. Subject line. Quick check-in. Urgent. From Sasha Tran, head of infrastructure at Briarwood Systems. A Riverpoint legacy account. One of mine. I hadn't heard from her since before the acquisition. We used to talk weekly sometimes just about her dog, or how she hated coffee, but loved the cafe vibes. Now she was suddenly urgent. I opened it. Gavin. Just found out you're no longer with Riverpoint. Honestly, that explains a lot. We've had 3 missed deliverables in the last month. Nobody answers my questions. They reassigned us to someone named Brent Jr. Yes, he actually calls himself that. Are you available to talk this week? I don't care what company name is on your email. I care that when you were here, we got answers. Let me know. Sasha. I stared at the screen. Not shocked, just affirmed. 2 days later, it was Mark Chen from Aldertech. Then Sonia Patel at Westbridge Analytics. Then 4 more. All the same message wrapped in different words. We didn't realize how bad it got until you were gone. Nexus didn't need to make sales calls. The clients were coming to us. Marcellus pulled me into his office. He was grinning. We've onboarded 3 of your former accounts in 6 weeks, he said. I've seen less churn in a dating app algorithm. I laughed, but deep down I felt it. This was legacy, not just performance, not just metrics, trust. I hadn't burned a bridge, I'd become the bridge. One afternoon, Lena came into my office with a quiet look on her face. You're not going to like this, she said. She slid her phone across the desk. A screenshot of a LinkedIn post. Brent Godfrey, VP at Riverpoint Solutions. We're excited to announce our strategic initiative to reshape client delivery powered by bold leadership and next-gen alignment strategies. Buzzword soup. But it got worse. One of the hashtags, client first. I laughed. Lena didn't. Gav, they're trying to act like they're thriving, like they're building something. I shook my head. No, they're painting over mold. And sooner or later, clients start to smell the truth. By week 9, 5 of my top 10 former clients had transitioned to Nexus. Not because I asked, but because they remembered how it felt to be prioritized, heard, respected. I didn't pitch, I just picked up the phone when it rang. And every time it did, Riverpoint lost another $1 million account. One night, I was closing up when my work phone buzzed. Private number. I answered. Gavin Walker. The voice was cold, corporate. I knew it. Gerald Finn, CEO of Riverpoint's parent company. I'd like to speak with you regarding recent client transitions, he said. Sure, I said, locking my laptop with one hand. But let me stop you right there. I've initiated none of them. You lost those accounts. I just happened to pick up when they called. Long pause. Then, we'd like to discuss a potential return. At an executive level. I almost dropped the phone. I'm not available, I said. Everything has a price, Mr. Walker. You're right, I replied. Mine was respect, and you couldn't afford it when it mattered. Click. That night, I drove home through the drizzle, Miles asleep in the back seat after soccer. I glanced at him in the mirror, curled up, breathing easy. I whispered to myself, this is what power looks like. Not dominance, dignity. You don't need to set fire to the house if it was already built on rot. Sometimes walking away is all it takes, and the walls cave in on their own. By the 10th week, Riverpoint wasn't just bleeding, it was hemorrhaging. The cracks weren't whispers anymore. They were screams in meeting rooms, inboxes, Slack channels. I didn't go looking for the news. It came to me. Priya, one of the sharpest analysts I ever worked with, DM'd me out of nowhere. They eliminated my position this morning. I trained my replacement last week. He's in Manila. Doesn't know our clients. Doesn't know our systems. But he's cheaper. My chest went cold. Priya was the last one left from the original team. She didn't ask for help, didn't need to. Send me your resume, I typed back. Give me 48 hours. 2 days later, she was onboarding at Nexus. Full salary, full benefits. Same day, I watched a LinkedIn update from Brent Godfrey disappear. Post deleted, comments turned off. No announcement, just gone. I didn't gloat, because I knew what came next. Companies like Riverpoint don't crash all at once. They collapse slowly from the center, from the people who stop believing, from the talent that stops trying. And now, there was no one left who remembered why it all mattered in the first place. But the final straw, it came on a Tuesday morning. Marcus walked into my office, eyes wide, holding his phone. Dude, he said, you need to see this. It was a screenshot from Sasha Tran at Briarwood. An internal Riverpoint memo leaked. Title Client Realignment and Offboarding Strategy Q3. It listed 12 clients at risk of churn. 8 of them were mine, all marked low recovery probability. Below that, a paragraph that made my jaw clench. Previous client lead Walker held outsized influence. Loyalty to individual, not brand. Loss attributed to poor succession planning. That was the truth. But seeing it written branded as outsized influence, it hit different. Not just because I'd been right, but because they finally admitted it. They didn't build those relationships. I did. They just assumed they owned them. Later that afternoon, Marcellus popped into my office. Just got off the phone with Aldertech, he said. They're giving us full control of their system integration. 6-month retainer. And they want you running point. I nodded. And Briarwood, he smiled. Contract signed this morning. I leaned back in my chair, took a slow breath. That same view of the Space Needle in the distance. But something had changed. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reclamation. My work, my time, my name. No longer hidden behind some cold logo or team win, but standing on its own. That night I sat at the dinner table with Miles. He was coloring a poster for the school science fair. You're coming this time, right? He asked. Front row, I said, embarrassingly loud, with snacks. He smiled without looking up. You're different now. I blinked. How so? He shrugged. You laugh more, and you sleep, out of the mouths of kids. I thought the door was closed. I walked away burned, nothing asked for nothing. But some ghosts. They don't haunt, they dial. It was 7:12 p.m. The sky outside was dusky lavender, the kind of soft Seattle light that makes you forget your heart's still running a marathon. Miles was brushing his teeth. I had just poured myself a glass of red. A good day. Until the phone rang. Unknown number. But not just any unknown. I knew. Some numbers carry a weight even when they're not saved. I let it ring twice before I answered. Gavin Walker. There was a pause. Then a voice I hadn't heard in over a year. Gavin, it's Elliot Cardenas, founder, former CEO of Riverpoint Solutions, the man who'd once called me irreplaceable. Now, he sounded tired, and I knew something was wrong. I wasn't sure if you'd pick up, he said. I stayed silent. He cleared his throat. I wanted to say, I've been watching what's happening. More silence. Riverpoint, it's not what I built, not anymore. Brent, Gerald, the acquisition, they gutted the soul. I exhaled through my nose. You sold it, Elliot. I know. His voice cracked. And I'm not calling to justify that. I made my money. I left. I told myself it was just business. But seeing what they did to you, to your team, I couldn't stay quiet. Part of me wanted to hang up, not out of hate, out of closure. But he wasn't done. They're in free fall, he continued. You probably know that. I didn't respond. I've taken meetings with Gerald. He's panicking. They want me back as a consultant, a branding move, to give the illusion that leadership is returning. I finally spoke. You calling to ask me to come with you? No, Elliot said. I'm calling to ask you not to. That made me pause. Because if you go back, he said they'll put you on a pedestal, then dismantle you from it. You've become too big for them now. I swallowed. I already said no, Elliot, months ago. I know, but they'll come again. Bigger offer, flashier title. They'll try to buy back what they lost. I leaned against the wall, phone warm against my ear. They didn't just lose me, I said quietly. They lost their center. And they didn't even notice until the floor gave out. Elliot sighed. I failed you, he said. I didn't answer that. Because it wasn't about blame anymore, he continued. Whatever you're building over there, it's loud. Clients are talking, vendors are noticing. Even some of my old board contacts, they're paying attention. I looked out the window. City lights blinking like stars on caffeine. Then maybe I said they'll stop pretending this is just business. Because it's never just business. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I hope you burn brighter than any of them ever expected. I ended the call. Didn't feel angry, didn't feel triumphant. I just felt still, like I had been given a strange kind of benediction from the ghost of the man who once gave me my shot. And now, I was holding the torch. You don't build legacy by staying in the shadows. You build it by turning around and lifting others up to stand in the light with you. The thing about walking away from a place like Riverpoint is that for a while you think it's over, that you escaped. But then you look behind you, and you see people still trapped, still tired, still trying. And if you're anything like me, you don't turn your back. 3 months into Nexus, I got an email from HR. Subject team expansion proposal. I opened the doc. Marcellus had written a single line at the top. Gavin, what would it take to build the dream team? No limits. Go big. I stared at the blinking cursor. Then I started to type. Names. Not just resumes, but stories. People I knew had been overlooked, underpaid, talked over in meetings, passed over for promotions. Some were ex-Riverpoint, some weren't. But they all had one thing in common. They were damn good. 2 weeks later, I was interviewing Lena for a director role. She walked into my new office smirking. Didn't think you'd call me back. Didn't think you'd answer, I replied. We both laughed, old scars healing. Then came Marcus. Then Priya, finally free after untangling her visa. Then Jacob from my early days in client ops. Then Sienna, who'd been forced into a part-time role at Riverpoint after maternity leave. We didn't just rebuild a team. We built a culture. Every Monday we started with no slide meetings. Cameras on. Stories first, updates second. Every Friday 4 p.m. we had something called client cheers. No pipeline talk. Just shout-outs for work done with heart. Actual connection. Marcellus called it the Gavin effect. I called it remembering people were people. And then, something wild happened. Clients started asking for the Walker team. Not Nexus, not departments, just us. Can we get your crew on the next rollout? Whatever team handled Alder Tech, we want them too. You guys just get it. That's when it hit me. We weren't just delivering. We were becoming a standard. And then the phone rang again. Not from River Point, not from Elliot. From a VC firm in New York. The woman on the other end sounded crisp, polished, ruthless in a velvet kind of way. We've been watching Nexus, she said. Specifically your division. You've doubled retention rates, tripled upsells. What you're building isn't just a team, it's an engine. She paused. Would you ever consider launching something of your own? I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I did. And it scared me how ready I was to say it. Later that night, I stood on the back porch. Rain tapping the railing. Miles inside asleep, his science fair trophy already crooked on the shelf. I whispered into the dark. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you create now and hand to others while you're still here. I wasn't done, not even close. Every person has a moment when the ground shifts. Not from failure, but from opportunity. The kind that doesn't knock. It breaks the door down. I sat in Marcellus's office, the same spot I'd first been offered a second chance. Only now, the conversation had flipped. You've built something extraordinary here. He said no. Notes in hand, just coffee and conviction. Clients love your team. Retention's breaking benchmarks. But I gotta ask. He leaned forward. What's next for you? I blinked. I'm here. For now, he said. But the question is, what would you build if you didn't have to answer to anyone? No investors. No board. Just your vision. Your rules. He let it sit, then added softly, you've already made everyone else rich. What happens if you build something that makes you free? I didn't answer right away, because truth was, that question had been echoing in my head ever since that call from New York. The VC firm Ardent Capital, Serena Voigt, Silicon Alley's queenmaker. She had sent a follow-up the next day. Gavin, if you're open, we'd like to back your idea. Seed round, advisory support, brand freedom. We don't want your clients. We want your DNA. Call me. I reread that message 10 times. My heart said yes. My fear said, what if I left Nexus and it failed? What if I burned through the capital? What if I couldn't replicate this magic alone? Then I remembered something Lena said during our second week at Nexus. We'd landed Westbridge's 3.2 meters renewal. Biggest deal of Q1. She looked at me and smiled. Funny how people keep telling you you're lucky. As if you didn't build the storm. Later that night, I pulled out a notebook. Started sketching. Not a business plan, not a P&L, a vision. A culture built on clarity. A tech partnership firm where humanity wasn't sacrificed for scalability. Where empathy led and excellence followed. Where the best people didn't burn out, they belonged. When I finished, I saw it, clear as day. The name, the model, the movement. And I knew. This was it. Not the exit, the evolution. The next morning, I met with Marcellus again. He looked at me like he already knew. You're leaving, aren't you? I nodded. But not today, I said. I need 3 months. To train my replacement. To stabilize my team. To walk out clean. He smiled. Of course. Then he stood and hugged me. I knew the day we hired you, he said, you wouldn't be here forever. You were meant to lead something that doesn't exist yet. That night I told Miles over dinner. His eyes went wide. You're starting your own company. Yeah, I said. Scary, right? He shrugged. Cooler than accounting. I laughed. Did you think I was gonna be an accountant? I mean, you have the dad voice sometimes. Touché. When he went to bed, I sat alone at the kitchen table. Laptop open, cursor blinking. The pitch deck was halfway done. Serena was waiting. And I was ready. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say isn't watch me win. It's I'm walking away and I'm not looking back. I launched True North Partners on a gray Tuesday morning. No fireworks, no viral post. Just a Google Doc, a Slack channel, and a team of 4 who believed in something bigger than job titles. No office yet, just laptops, a living room, and faith. But the moment we opened our virtual doors, the phone started ringing. Sasha from Briarwood called first. "Gav, whatever you're building, we want in." Then Mark Chen. Then Sonia. Then a list of names I hadn't heard in years, each with the same quiet urgency in their voice. "We remember how you made us feel. Let's do that again." We weren't chasing contracts. We were curating trust. Every project we took on had 3 conditions. No burnout. No bullshit. No treating people like headcount. And guess what? It worked. By month 6, we had 5 Fortune 500s on retainer. By year 1, we were profitable. Not just breaking even. Profitable. And not because we out-hustled. Because we out-humaned. People started talking. TechCrunch. Business Insider. Even a podcast I once listened to during River Point all-nighters invited me on. The host asked me, "What's your secret sauce, Gavin?" I smiled into the mic. Give people space to care, and they'll move mountains for you. I never sent a press release. Never posted a "you humbled CEO" thread. But one night I did write something on LinkedIn. Simple, honest. 3 years ago, I was handed a 50% pay cut in a windowless HR room. I left with a cardboard box and my dignity. Today I run a company built on everything that room forgot: respect, loyalty, real value. This isn't revenge, it's reclamation. And if you're sitting in your own HR room right now, wondering if this is all you're worth, it's not. You're not disposable, you're undervalued, and that's fixable. Walk away, build better. I did. That post hit 2 million views in 3 days, but none of that mattered as much as what happened one Thursday night. Miles was up late building a volcano for science class. Glue everywhere, baking soda in his hair. He looked up and said, "You're happier now, like, all the way." I smiled, because I'm building something I believe in. He nodded, eyes serious. "Then I'm gonna build something too." That night I sat on the back porch again. Same chair, same view. Only this time, I wasn't staring at the past. I was looking ahead, toward the people we'd help, the stories we'd rewrite, the next kid watching a parent try again. And if someone ever asks me, was it worth it, all the risk, the fear, the walkout, I'll answer with this: absolutely. Because the real win wasn't the company, it wasn't the money. It was knowing my worth and choosing it. So here's what I've learned. They may control the offer, the room, the rules, but they will never own your value. That's yours. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's walking out with your head high and walking into the life they never thought you'd have the guts to build.